He made his NFL debut under the stadium lights in front of a crowd and cameras, and when the whistle blew, the one thing he couldn't fix with more practice, his own front door, had already been forced open. While Shedeur Sanders was learning how fast this league can move, someone was moving through his house. The break-in happened during Sunday's Browns-Ravens game, and police and team sources say details are still being gathered. AP News. On the field, the debut read like a lesson plan for humility. Sanders came in after Dillon Gabriel exited with a concussion and finished 4 for 16 for 47 yards with an interception, a fumble, and 2 sacks, a passer rating that reflected how raw the afternoon felt. Those numbers don't tell the whole story. A near touchdown was broken up at the last second, a tipped interception was nearly caught, but they do tell you this: the NFL does not hand out mercy for inexperience. Reuters, that contrast, public performance, private violation, is what makes this moment feel almost cinematic in its cruelty. A rookie's first snap, sweat and hope filmed for millions. A stranger rifling through his home for reasons that the league now recognizes as part of a broader organized problem. The NFL and law enforcement have been warning about coordinated burglaries targeting athletes for over a year, and players from Patrick Mahomes to Joe Burrow have been victims of similar crimes. League and federal attention followed those incidents, and the memo advising teams and players to harden security was not some theoretical bulletin. It was a direct response to a real, ongoing threat. ESPN.com. You can hear two different kinds of fear in this: the immediate fear when you see someone in your house, and the quieter, longer-term fear that your private life is suddenly unsafe because you're famous for doing your job. For a young player like Sanders, who slid to the 5th round at number 144 despite sky-high college tape and plenty of hype, this is more than a headline. It's a theft of the small, everyday peace that lets you sleep between practices and game day. The Browns' pick at 144 was supposed to be the start of a new chapter. Instead, he's dealing with police reports and locker room tape in the same 24 hours. NFL.com. Inside the locker room, the response was a mix of protection and perspective. Veterans like Myles Garrett publicly stepped up, not to grandstand about sacks, but to deflect blame and shield a rookie who immediately tried to take the loss personally. Garrett's leadership in those moments, telling the team and the kid that this is a collective issue and that no single player should carry it alone, matters as much as tackles on film. Culture is an underrated part of development. A young quarterback who feels protected is likelier to learn than one who feels exposed. CBS Sports operationally, this breaks down into 2 urgent tasks for the Browns. 1, cooperate with police and secure whatever evidence exists and reassure a player whose sense of safety has been violated. 2, pivot to football. If Dillon Gabriel clears concussion protocol, he's the starter, and Sanders goes back to being a developmental project. If Gabriel doesn't clear, Sanders will get a full week of first-team reps and a real chance to show what consistent preparation looks like. Either way, the team has to manage a rookie's mental state while also deciding whether to accelerate his learning curve under high pressure. Reuters, there are bigger structural questions too. The rash of athlete burglaries has forced leagues and teams to re-examine how they protect players whose jobs require them to be away from home for days at a time. The NFL's warnings and the high-profile arrests and investigations that followed have pushed security conversations from the players' group chat to boardroom action items. But systems and memos can only go so far. Implementation costs money, coordination, trust, and sometimes a cultural shift where players are trained to treat their off-field lives with the same strategic seriousness they treat an opponent's blitz package. The Washington Post, blissmorally. For Sanders personally, the loss of possessions is beside the point compared to the loss of normalcy. He'll have to sleep under another set of lights, file reports, meet with investigators, and still be ready, possibly within days, for professional practice and media. That's a brutal double shift of emotion and function. Grieve or process a home invasion, then learn timing and reads under the microscope. If anything, the moment will test his resilience as much as his arm strength. Some players use hardship as fuel, others get swallowed by it. The support he gets now will help determine which path he takes. People.com. And then there's the narrative noise. Being Deion Sanders' son brought both spotlight and skepticism long before the draft. Falling to the fifth round added another layer of what if to the story arc. Now, headlines will pair his on field struggles with the burglary and turn a week into a defining chapter. That's unfair, but it's also the reality of modern sports media. Small slivers of human life magnified until they feel like destiny. What matters more than the headlines, though, are the practice reps, the coaching adjustments, and the private conversations that happen away from cameras. Fox Sports. If you want to imagine the Week 12 script, it can go two ways. In one version, Gabriel clears protocol, Sanders returns to a quiet developmental week, and the burglary becomes a side note, painful, personal, but not career-defining. In the other, Gabriel doesn't clear, Sanders gets a full week of prep, the Browns simplify the playbook, protect him with quick reads and schemed runs, and he answers with a cleaner, more confident performance in Las Vegas. Either outcome hinges on how the organization balances urgency with patience, whether they accelerate him because necessity forces them to, or they protect his long-term growth by sticking to the plan. Reuters, but don't mistake sympathy for strategy. Teams will act in their own competitive self-interest, and courts and police will do their job on the burglary. The NFL will keep pushing security advice. Players will keep being warned about social media check-ins and valuable items left in view. The cultural lesson, though, is more intimate. Celebrity can be dangerous in ways no one plans for, and the people around a young player matter as much as coaching diagrams. Veterans who step in and say, "You're not alone," buy a kid more time and mental space than any short-term hype cycle. The Washington Post, when the smoke clears, the film room will tell you how he reads a coverage, how he sets his feet, how his progressions improve. The police report will tell you what is missing from his house. Both documents will be examined, but only one determines whether he remains in the lineup next week. For now, the image that sticks is not a busted lock or a lousy stat line. It's a young man who walked into an NFL locker room, tried to own a bad performance, and had a superstar teammate stand up and say, "No, not on my watch." That's the kind of human play that doesn't show up in box scores, but it might be the reason he's still standing when the season is over. CBS Sports, so watch the next few days. Medical updates on Gabriel, police updates on the burglary, and practice reports for Sanders. The rest is noise until those facts land. But remember this, the NFL will teach him how to read defenses. Life will teach him how to secure a house. Right now, he has to do both. Shedeur Sanders' NFL debut was already going to be a hot-button story. Rookie thrust into action after Dillon Gabriel's concussion, national spotlight, high expectations, and then his personal life got dragged into it when his home was reportedly burglarized during the game. That sequence of events makes for an ugly 1-2 punch, a rough on-field first impression followed by an off-field trauma that could sideline his mental focus as much as any injury. Start with the football. Sanders entered in the second